What is up, soul sisters, and welcome back to another episode of Turn Up the Love Live. It's your girl Sarah here, and I am a body positive intuitive eating coach and the founder of turnupthelove.ca, and I help serial dieters to stop feeling so cray-cray around food and help them to trust food and their bodies again. And we're actually ending off the month of June with our last and final episode all about intuitive eating. So if you've wanted to learn about intuitive eating, what it is, how to sort of ditch the diet culture and choose intuitive eating instead, you're definitely going to want to check out past episodes that I did this month, in the month of June, and you can check those out at turnupthelove.ca to get yourself caught up to speed. So what are we talking about today? Check it in the title. So today we are learning all about, or I guess I shouldn't say learning. Today I'm breaking down 3 reasons you haven't been able to eat intuitively on your own, because I know that it can be a challenge when you're first getting started. So I want to kind of make that process a little bit easier for you and fill in the gap here. I'm also going to be breaking down how intuitive eating can get super confusing and what you can actually do about it to make it easier on yourself. The importance of understanding how to use food or how you have been using food in your life and why that is so crucial to know if you want to be an intuitive eater. What happens when you actually eliminate entire food groups and why it's actually not about the food at all, and why conscious eating, yes, conscious eating, will take you so much further than control ever will. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get right into it because I got lots to cover like I do in every single week. So let me just start dishing out all the goods. Now, before we get started, I want to see a show of hands. So if you're watching the replay, jump in the comments and let me know that you're on the replay all day, every day, and that you are watching me. And if you're watching live, then feel free to answer in the comments now. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know how you heard of me. I want to know where you're at. But give me a show of hands in the comments. Throw me an emoji or say a hell yeah if you've tried intuitive eating, but then you kind of fell right back into the disconnected eating behaviors. So you gave it a go, but then you quickly fell back into what you've always kind of done with food. So whether that's weighing and measuring your food, binge eating, restricting your foods, counting calories. Tell me what that experience would have looked like, and if you did try it and how that outcome was. Or maybe you've thought to yourself, I don't want to diet anymore. I want to eat intuitively, but I also want to eat healthy foods. And I'm afraid that I'm going to have a free-for-all once I start intuitive eating. And intuitive eating tells me that if I eat healthy foods, that this is diet culture, so what am I supposed to do? If you've been feeling like that also, hit me up in the comments and let me know where you're at, okay? So I understand, this can be the super confusing part of intuitive eating. I totally get it. Thankfully, when I was getting started on my intuitive eating journey, I was already in a place where I was eating and selecting healthy, high vibrational foods on a frequent basis. My challenge with intuitive eating, or where the challenge was and why I was so disconnected from food, was that I was so obsessive about eating those clean foods that there was a lot of guilt and shame in my relationship with food when I would eat foods that I had classified or categorized as bad. And then it would just create this vicious spiral where, I would eat something and then I would feel really guilty about it, and then I would restrict, and that would cause me to then binge again, and it would just be this endless cycle of me feeling disconnected with food. However, if you're on the opposite side of the spectrum and you are someone who is not eating healthy, high vibrational foods, foods that are processed, foods that are out of packages, foods that are just jam-packed with all the things, and you know that this is not the way that you want to be eating, and you know that it's not good for you and your body and your health, then I definitely want to be talking about this because it is something that a lot of people question when it comes to intuitive eating, right? So I think what's missing most when it comes between that phase of, eating all these processed foods and maybe binging or emotional eating on things that are making you feel pretty much like crap, I think what's going on here is there's that extreme. And then there's also like the extreme dieting, right? And then there's intuitive eating, which is on the total opposite end of the spectrum because it's like the anti-diet. So you have these two areas, which are all the way over here, and then you have intuitive eating, which is all the way over here. And what we need to really do is fill that gap. Intuitive eating is the destination, right? Intuitive eating is where we want to go, but we have to work in the middle and work towards that. You can't just go from one extreme to the other overnight. It is an absolute process. So what I want to do tonight is I actually want to break down these reasons why you haven't been able to eat intuitively on your own, and the 3 things that you're likely missing when it comes to filling that gap for yourself, okay? Because I want to make this process as easy for you as possible. So let's just go ahead and dive in to tonight's topic. So the first thing that one of the reasons why you likely have not been able to eat intuitively on your own is that you're so incredibly focused on what you're eating versus why you're actually eating it. Because let's be honest, diet culture is all about the what, right? What are you eating? How much? When are you eating it during the day? What are the portion sizes of it? Is there sugar in it? Is there gluten? Is there dairy? Like the what, right? It's all about the what. However, where we need to go is to intuitive eating. So it's more about why we're eating in this way, okay? So let me know, when you eat something, do you feel the need to justify it? So are you explaining to either yourself or others why, what made you decide to eat that food? Is that an experience that you're currently having with food? Are you justifying it about what you're eating? Hit me up in the comments and fill me in on where you're at. Because whether it's pizza or like a cauliflower smoothie, if you're struggling with intuitive eating, it's because your focus is way too heavily on the food itself versus the experience you're having around food, okay? And that's what we really want to be looking at. We really want to be looking at what the experiences that you're having around food, okay? So before you start intuitive eating, you actually have to first understand why you're eating the way that you are and how you're actually using food in your life, right? Because disconnected eaters, they use food to disconnect. They use food to tune out. They use food to numb, right? And this is why it's actually essential to implement certain strategies to help you to get more conscious, to help you to reconnect and get present in the moment with yourself so you can have an idea of what it is that's going on here, because no one can figure this out but you. And this is what I tell all the women that I work with. Like, I can't be the one to find all these answers for you. You have to be your own detective, and I will guide you towards those answers, and I have tons of tools to help you do that. But at the end of the day, these answers are within you, and this is your own exploration that you need to do yourself, right? So to change your eating habits, you really have to shift the thinking that surrounds the food that you're eating and the way that you're eating it, right? So if the best way to do this, you guys, the absolute best way, and this is what I actually used when I was trying to figure out this process and get super clear on what was actually going on and what was really happening with my relationship with food, because all I had ever looked at was the food itself. I had never looked at my relationship with the food, right? So what I did is I actually created a food diary where I gave myself a full diary where I was able to ask myself a series of questions at every eating episode. And then I was able to reflect on, what was kind of happening and summarize it all. After about 10 days time, I was already seeing the patterns. And that's when I was able to get really clear on what it is that was going on. So if you have not yet checked out my food diary, I invite you to go check it out. I've added the link up above on Facebook, down below on Instagram, and down below on YouTube. Wherever you're watching it, the link is there. Go check it out, explore, because it really is an amazing tool to help you get started in this process, because this is all new. I know this is all new, so you're going to want as much support as you can possibly get there. And the really cool thing about the food diary is that it actually records what you're eating from like a moment-to-moment basis, as well as where you're eating, how you're eating, when you're eating, what feelings you're experiencing during the eating session. So it gets so incredibly clear on what is going on behind the food, okay? And the focus isn't on like the actual food itself. It's more about the feelings that you're experiencing while you're eating. And the amount that you need to eat in order to relate to those feelings. So it's super groovy. It gives you tons of clarity, and I definitely think that it will really help you to get started if you've been struggling to kind of fill this gap between dieting or restriction, or binge eating and emotional eating. Again, it's not something we can just jump from one to the other. We have to go through these steps in the middle, and that is definitely something that will help to take you there and help you to remove the whole focusing on what you're eating, and instead you can get clear on why you're eating it in that way, okay? And something else I want to mention about this too, it can be really difficult in the beginning to record your foods and really have a look at what's going on, but I promise you it will get easier and easier and easier the more that you do it. And it's absolutely essential to really get to the root of what's going on. We don't want to put a Band-Aid on these situations. We want to get clear, and then we get to the root of it so we can heal it. Okay, and that all comes from self-awareness. So if you're ready to lean in, I invite you to check that out because I think it will definitely be very helpful for you. Second thing, the second reason why you haven't been able to eat intuitively on your own, second thing, you think that food is actually a trigger. So show of hands here, show of hands, who has said that when you eat a certain food, you will go out of control or you will binge? Are there certain foods that you just cannot say no to? Let me know in the comments if there is, and what kind of foods are those? And do you restrict yourself from having those foods? Do you say, oh, hell no, I cannot touch that because I will go overboard and I'm totally out of control around it? What's your experience with that? So I used to think this way too. I used to think that I had a serious addiction to sugar. I thought that if there was sugar around me, I would eat it all and I would binge and go out of control, and therefore no sugar whatsoever could be in my house. Nothing. Wouldn't allow not a bit of sugar because I would binge and go overboard, right? But here's the thing, you guys. It's not actually about the food, okay? It's not actually about the food. It more has to do, when it comes to your relationship with food, it more has to do with your thinking around food. It's the thinking that's actually causing the disconnect here, okay? And let me give you an example, okay? So say like me, you have this belief that when you eat sugar, you're going to binge and you're going to be out of control with sugar, and that no amount of sugar is safe for you to eat at all. Same as me, right? In this case, very much like I did, I created this extremely black and white, rigid thinking about my ability to consume sugar. There was no middle of the road approach. It was just black and white, like either sugar or no sugar, right? And oftentimes when something is extremely black and white like that, that is the first sign that you are in distorted thinking. It's the first sign that your mind is playing tricks on you, and there's a very slight chance that is not 100% true, right? And actually, by believing this thought, by me thinking like, okay, sugar is evil, sugar is bad, I ended up obsessing over sugar way more. And I was obsessing over how much sugar I had eaten, and then I beat myself up when I ate sugar, or I ate a cookie, or I ate something that had a gram of sugar, and I would beat myself up over it. Like, you know better, you shouldn't have eaten that, now you're going to want to binge on all the sugar, right? And that started this whole messy thought process around the food, okay? So when you have a thought that's extreme and black and white just like this, and there is no room for a middle-of-the-road approach, that's when you definitely know that you're in distorted thinking. But put it this way. What if instead I just, ate my favorite thing, like ate chocolate or drank a sugary kombucha, and just acknowledge like, okay, whatever, it is what it is, and then just move on with my day. how different would that be? That allowance, that acceptance, without the guilt, without the shame, right? So it's not actually that we are, it's not actually that food is a trigger. It's actually that our thinking is causing us to feel disconnected from food. And those thoughts put us into the restriction, can't have any. And then naturally we want it more. And then when we have it, we feel guilty, which puts us back into the restriction. And it creates this endless cycle, right? So the best thing you can do is, if you're trying to identify your triggers, because there are several triggers that can keep you disconnected with food. And if you want to learn more about that, I did a whole series on triggers and all the different types of triggers, what they are, how they keep you feeling disconnected from food. If you want to catch up to speed on that, you can check that out on turnupthelove.ca, and you can read all about triggers there. But the thing is we need to realize that food is not a trigger. Food is not one of the things that is categorized as a trigger. And by actually using, again, the food diary is exactly what I use and the same tool that I used when I was trying to figure out what my triggers are. And it can be super helpful in the beginning, because then you can get clear also on what these thoughts are that are coming up with your food before, during, and after a meal. So then you can pretty much nail these thoughts down and work through them and start to question their truth before just believing that all sugar is bad, I cannot have that, and then going into that restriction guilt cycle. Does that make sense? Hit me up in the comments if you're following me and that makes sense to you. Okay, so the last and final reason why you haven't been able to eat intuitively on your own, and you guys might have guessed this one already because I've already touched on it quite a bit, you're caught up in restriction. You are caught up in restriction big time. And if you're still caught up in restriction, and I know that diets are what trigger that, so whether you're eating crap food and then you diet, you eat good, then you eat crap food again, or you're just like an extreme health nut and you're just always eating health foods, you're restricting things, right? So let me ask you guys this. Have you ever eliminated a food based off of something you read or something you were told from a friend or a health professional without even exploring how that food actually makes you feel? Have you ever done that before in the past? I know I did. I was cutting out everything. I was cutting out carbs completely, cutting out bread, was cutting out sweet sugar, like I said, was cutting out gluten, was cutting out, even as a vegan, cutting out everything without checking to see how these foods made me feel, right? So there was so much restriction, right? So much restriction. But how about this? Rather than restricting food, I think it's extremely important that you actually crowd out. So rather than cutting out the foods and restricting, I think it's important that you crowd out these foods that aren't working for your body. But again, you have to do the exploration work to know what's not working for your body rather than just listening to someone and trusting them. It's about finding certain foods that work for you and your body and swapping it out with something else. For example, milk chocolate was a huge disrupt to my system. I don't do very well with dairy. I get stomach aches. I feel completely bloated and uncomfortable, and I know that it just doesn't work for me and my body. So what did I do? I switched milk chocolate to dark chocolate. And dark chocolate is so rich that I could literally take like 1 or 2 pieces, and then I'm like, ooh, okay, I feel satisfied. I enjoyed it. And then that was it. Right? So we shouldn't be eliminating foods altogether. I invite you to start crowding out versus cutting out and give yourself some structure here, but without so much control. Okay? Because you can be healthy and have sustainable food choices and be conscious with your food without having to cut out entire food groups. Okay? You don't need to eliminate these entire food groups. And the women that I work with, honestly, the women that I work with, they eat a wide range of foods and they're super flexible with their food choices, and they no longer refuse they won't punish themselves, and they aren't overeating, and their eating has just become relaxed and enjoyable, and they've overcome their urges to binge and to purge and to starve themselves because they allow themselves to have the foods that they want. And sometimes that can look like pleasure. But just because you have some foods that are pleasurable, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're unhealthy. Because you have to remember, the physical health is just one aspect of our health. Mental health is also a key component, so is spiritual health, and so is emotional health. So if you're driving yourself nuts with guilt and shame, I'm pretty sure those other areas are going to be out of whack, because guilt and shame are literally of the lowest vibrations. Okay? So make adjustments, just like my clients did. Swap things out. Find out what doesn't work for you in your body by doing the discovery work, by doing the work inside of the food diary, by getting clear on what it is that triggers you. And then once you have identified those triggers, then you can make alterations that do work for you in your body. And this is a journey, right? It's going to take time. It's a process. But the more that you show up to do the work, the easier it's going to get, and then it will become like second nature to you, and you'll be able to do this with total ease. Okay? So that's all I have for you guys tonight. 3 reasons why you haven't been able to eat intuitively on your own. I'm hoping that these points I mentioned help you to fill in the gap here so that you can move your way from dieting or restriction and move your way into intuitive eating. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. It will take time, but hopefully this will speed up the process for you. And if you do really want to check out this food diary, again, you guys, it is so incredibly important. It's the single most important tool that you will use in healing your relationship with food and your body. And it's only $20. It's like 19 bucks. And it will help you tremendously. And there's really cool check-in pages you can use there as well. And it's very, very helpful. Actually, I might even try to just kind of show you guys. Let me see what I can do here for you. I might be able to actually just kind of show you guys what this actually looks like. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, Instagram, you'll just have to check out the link because I don't have this option here. But you guys should be able to see my screen here now. So this is the food diary. This is the page that you'll go to when you click this link. So I call it your new BFF because it really is. It will really help you to heal your relationship with food and get really clear on what's going on. So this is where you can purchase the food diary. If you're ready to change your relationship with food, you can record the experience you're having surrounding food. You can learn awareness and consciousness around your food habits. You can understand your emotional experience with food so you're not using it as a coping mechanism. You can discover what foods actually nourish and fuel your body so you can feel at your best. And again, that's going to look different for everyone, right? So this is why I want you to do your own exploration. You can relearn your body's hunger cues, which tend to go out of whack if you've been in a place of dieting for a long time. You can be confident and understand when you're actually feeling hungry and when you're feeling satisfied. This is what intuitive eating actually teaches you, so it will help you to kind of get there. And you'll be able to eat what you want and not what you think that you should eat as well. And again, I'm all about ripping off that Band-Aid solution and really helping you get to the root cause of this problem. And I want you to fill up on self-love and not food. So this is just a little bit about me if you want to read more, but it's a 2-week intuitive food diary for you to use where you can identify, track, and record how you're feeling before, during, and after a meal. And this is a little sneaky peek of what it looks like. It's super feminine. I'm sorry, males. I mostly only work with women, so I'm all about making it cute for the ladies. And it just kind of breaks down every single thing that you need to know about the food diary. And again, it's just $19.99. You can snag it right here and get everything that you need. If you want to take this a step further, you can also join my Reconnect with Food 2-week intro program for $199, and you'll get a whole lot more if you really want to take this journey to the next level. So check it out, you guys. Let me know what you think. Lots of great feedback on it. It's a tool that I used when I first got started on my intuitive eating journey, and I think it will really help you guys too if you've been really struggling with this. But I hope you guys have an amazing night. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. If you can, in the comments below, let me know what your single biggest takeaway was from tonight's episode, and I would love to chat with you about how I can support you further. But until next time, I hope you have an amazing night, and if you are in Canada, have an amazing Canada Day long weekend, and I will chat with you guys and catch up with you guys super soon. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again. Bye for now, guys.